we are going to have a video editing showdown between 4 different Apple devices. Hey everybody, it's Chris from FamilyGeekery, and for about the last year I've been using this iPad Pro right here to do the majority of my video recording and video editing. And this iPad Pro does have the M1 processor, and I've been using LumaFusion for all the video editing, and it's great. I love it. It's very quick and intuitive, and like I said, I've been using it for a year, so I've had no reason to change. Now recently, we have received an M1 and an M2 Mac Mini here, and I've been playing around with them a little bit, doing some videos on them, and with the M1 and the M2 architecture, you can actually use LumaFusion because it's on the App Store, and you can run these apps, which are designed for iOS, but you can run them on the M1 and M2 processors. So I've got, like I said, 2 different Mac Minis. I've got up here a Mac Air, which is also the M1 processor. And what I decided to do is I took one of my LumaFusion projects and I put it on all 4 devices, 2 Mac Minis, this iPad, and this Air. And I'm going to render them and see which one ends up winning. So we're starting with a project that's a 10-minute 4K file, and it's not very complicated, so there's not a whole lot of transitions and text edits and stuff like that. So pretty simple file, but it is 10 minutes long and it is 4K. And we're going to render that on all 4 of these devices. Now, the Mac Minis are going to be just standard Mac Minis plugged in, ready to go. The Air is going to be unplugged, so it's going to be running on battery power only. And I figured that way we can test a laptop the way the laptop's supposed to be tested. I'm not sure if there's any performance difference with this plugged into the wall or not plugged into the wall, but that's the test I'm going to be going with. And of course, the same thing with the iPad. Every time I'm editing, this thing's just sitting in my lap, and I'm sitting on the couch, and I'm editing away. So that's the same way. It's going to be unplugged and just rendering that way. Now, there is one difference between these 2 Mac Minis besides the M1 and M2, and that is that the M1 has 16 gigs of RAM. So I'm not sure if that's going to play into it at all. But in theory, the M2 should be the faster of the 2. And I know there's been a difference between the hard drive that are in the M2. The hard drive is like a single drive instead of dual parallel drives that give a little bit of a performance boost on the M1. But at least we can test an M1 versus an M1 versus an M1, and then have the M2 also in the test. So if you're ready to go, I'm going to capture all 4 of these to a capture card on my computer. And that way that none of the capturing is going to be done on the actual device itself. It's all going to be captured by a separate computer, so that won't affect the speeds of any of their rendering at all. And I'm going to go ahead and put those up on the screen. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to speed up the time of the playback by 10 times until the first one finishes, and then I'll drop it to real time so you can see the real-time difference between the 4 devices. So here we go. So wow, it looks like the iPad Pro is the fastest of the 4. That kind of surprised me. So let's see who comes in as number 2. And it looks like the Mac Mini M1, and then followed right by the MacBook Air M1 a second later, and finally the Mac Mini M2 being the last one. That's really not probably something that Apple would want you to see. So I wasn't really sure what to expect. I was kind of figuring that the M2 was going to be the fastest of the four in that test, and I was wrong about that. So what this really boils down to for me is I get to keep on editing right here on this iPad. It seems to be the best way to go. So I've been enjoying that process over the last year, and I think I'm going to stick with it versus switching to a desktop for any kind of video editing. Now, when videos require a lot of editing with titles and a lot of transitions and stuff like that, then sometimes I do use other programs. But for right now, the majority of my stuff is going to stick right here with LumaFusion right on the iPad. So that's pretty much going to wrap up this little video. Hope you enjoyed it. It was enlightening to me. Hopefully it was enlightening to you as well. If you enjoyed it, then make sure you give me that thumbs up. That helps out the channel. And if you want to see more, hit that subscribe button. But thank you as always for watching, and until next time, peace out and geek out.